So you've gathered your prescription from your patient, you've taken all the measurements, and you've now sent it off to the lab to be manufactured. And the lab kind of has two options for manufacturing lenses into a frame. For progressives and bifocals, we're kind of limited to one thing. We do have to surface them to be able to put the prescription into the lens, and you can take a look at our other videos for how that's done. For single vision, we do have two routes. We can either surface the prescription into what's called a semi-finished lens, or we can buy a finished lens where the manufacturer puts the sphere and sill powers into the lens and just bypass our entire surfacing line to help speed up the process of getting these glasses back to your patient. Regardless of which way we go, the kind of start of this process is what we call dotting. So it's verifying the prescription within the lens and putting on axis marks on the lens to verify where the prescription is so we can do all of our lining up in the edging process. The equipment we use for this is either a lensometer, or here at Chadwick we use the A&R Pro Mapper. So we'll stick the lens into this machine, it'll read it using cameras and all kinds of fancy lasers, and it'll actually print lines and your dots on the lens for all of your axis markings and your progressive marks on the lens. For digital design, so digital progressive, single vision, or bifocal, the Pro Mapper also does an additional step where it takes a look at the digital file and compares it against the lens to make sure what the digital manufacturer thinks the lens should be actually matches up against what we made. After the lens is dotted and we've pulled the frame for the job, it moves into our etching department. During the etching process, what we do is cut down the lens and then we'll check it against the frame. So it comes off the machine, we'll check size and fit. And we're not only checking that to ensure that it fits into the frame, but that when the frame closes, we don't have any pressure fits or lenses that are too big, which down the line may cause lenses to fracture or pinch or really cause any defects in the lens that you'll notice after a couple months. To do this, we have two different routes we can take. Depending on thickness and bevel type, we have to put a block on the front of the lens to mount it into a couple different machines. We have a couple of 6Es, which are an older style edger. They're more of a 3-axis edger. So it takes a pattern, it cuts the lens down to shape and size, and kind of runs more of your standard bevels. The other edgers we run here are a couple of MEI edgers. So we run Easy Fits and NBL. The NBL, as I said, is a no-block edger. So you just line the lens up to where the processing needs to be. It uses suction to mount the lens into the machine, and it cuts it down to size for the frame. The Easy Fit gets a block on the lens and you mount it into the machine for it to cut down. The difference between these two machines and the 6Es is that the MEIs are what we call a 5-axis machine. So instead of just being able to cut these hide bevels and grooves, it can do a wide range of frames. So if you think of frames like Oakley and Maui Jim, where they have these step back bevels or they have these very sharp edges to them, they're able to cut all kinds of cool and interesting features onto lenses. Anything you can imagine they can do. Your drill mounts are done on things like this, where a bit comes in and cuts holes into the lens. Pockets, so if you're doing frames that have gems on them and you want to mount gems into the lens, a machine like this can cut the holes in various sizes and shapes to mount gems. You want to facet the lens so that you can create some really cool planes and angles. This machine will cut some facets. Overall, the MEIs are just kind of this really cool upgrade to the 6Es. After our edging process, we move on to tinting and AR, which we'll look at in later videos.